Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman City of Madness #1. This is a new book from DC Comics under Black Label. Let's talk about the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written and drawn by Christian Ward with letters by Hassan Otsmane Elhau. And let's give a little bit of a synopsis before we talk about this. In this book, visionary creator Christian Ward unleashes a cosmic horror epic featuring the Court of Owls. Buried deep within the city of Gotham, there exists another Gotham. This Gotham below is a living nightmare populated by twisted mirrors of our Gotham's denizens, fueled by the fear and hatred flowing down from above. For decades, the doorway between the cities has been sealed and heavily guarded by the Court of Owls, but now the door has swung wide open, and the twisted version of the Dark Knight has escaped to trap and train a Robin of his own. Batman must form an uneasy alliance with the Court of Owls and its deadly allies to stop him, and to hold back the wave of super twisted villains, nightmarish versions of his own nemesis, each one worse than the last, that's spilling into the streets. That sound like just that just sounds like a really cool synopsis. Like this book had me at like Christian Ward doing Batman, but then once I realized what we were doing, I didn't even read the synopsis before diving into it. I just knew it was going to be fun, it was going to be twisted, it was going to look cool as shit, and all those things definitely check out. But now diving into the actual story, it's a really fun concept, right? I think the idea of this mirror version of Gotham, this twisted version of Gotham residing below the city. I think having the Court of Owls, bringing them back, folding them back into the story in this way, because they are the oldest, like the gatekeepers of Gotham, right? Everything that they built, they would be aware of everything happening like that. So what versions of other twisted characters are we going to see coming from that other Gotham? In this issue, we definitely get a sneak peek at some of the stuff that's going to happen. But let's take a look at some of the preview art here. And as I've mentioned before, Christian Ward is a phenomenal artist. That's how, I think before he started doing more writing, that's what he was working on in comics. So I love here the dialogue or the narration inside of the outline of Batman. I love the look of the city. I think Christian Ward's colors are always very painterly in a way that really makes it stand out. The colors really give depth to like everything, all the bats and Batman run around the city. I love his use of like very neon palettes and stuff, so you'll see that throughout the issue. And of course, because it is a Black Label title, we get this super wide screen effect in those splash pages because the book is a lot wider than a normal comic book. So yeah, plenty of space for Christian Ward to do some really cool stuff. And as we move on, the pacing of the story is really fun. I think there's enough narration at the beginning to kind of rope you in and really fill you in on all the little details. But it's not overwhelming, which is usually, sometimes narration can be overwhelming. I think Haas's letters just really I love the font that's used between. It makes it feel like a historical document, right? Like this almost not so much cursive, but like this almost inked by hand, left in a note type of feel. And then of course we have some really cool images. I love the imagery of Two-Face and how he has decided to be represented in this issue, how he split up the coin, his apartment, like all that stuff, and of course Batman crashing in. I also really like the outfit that Batman's wearing. I think it's a really cool design. And I love the shades of purple in his cape that are very reminiscent of some of the original designs and color palettes. So yeah, I am super invested in this book. Like I said, it's got a really cool hook. This issue is about 48 pages, so you definitely get a lot of really cool stuff happening, especially towards the end of the issue. You really are sold on this story of this other Gotham and this other Batman and everything from there. Of course, the Court of Owls looks fantastic with those, just the design of those masks. Like they really nailed the design, which has translated over to a lot of artists using them in a very effective manner. So yeah, I love this book. I can't wait for this to come out and just to continue reading it. I can't wait for this to be collected because I know it's going to be like a beautiful, beautiful hardcover. I'm pretty sure I'm going to end up picking this up both in singles and in the collection because Christian Ward's covers are amazing. We also get a really cool variant by Bill Sienkiewicz, which you'll see at the end of the video. So yeah, highly, highly recommend it. Uh, you'll one of the things that this synopsis says as well, you'll never look at Batman's villains the same way again. And I definitely agree. So even just from the little hints we get here with Two-Face and the Court of Owls, like, yeah, I think it's going to be really, really interesting. So if you read this, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Superboy, The Man of Tomorrow, number 6. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's talk about the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Kenny Porter with art and colors by Genoa Lindsay and letters by Lucas Gattoni. This is chapter 6, the last issue of this book. So I'm a little sad that this book is over because I really have been enjoying this. I'm a big fan of Kenny Porter and now also Genoa Lindsay, who's I'm sure I've seen his art before. I just hadn't seen it like as much as I've been following it in this series. So this really kind of brought into perspective all the range of this artist, which is really, really cool. So in this issue, Connor's solo mission reaches its conclusion, and it's all come down to this. Connor fights tooth and nail to protect the victims of Dominator X, but when the dust settles, what will that mean for Superboy's future as a hero? So yeah, I think throughout the whole book, Connor has been looking for a place to belong, for a place, like, what is his purpose, right? I think as a clone, and also just a member of the super family, the bar's pretty high. Like he's trying to find his place in the world. He's also, a young man, so he's struggling to also find who he is as a man and as a person, as a Kryptonian, and as a citizen of Earth. So like, there's a lot happening here. So he's gone out on this mission, and I think he's met some really cool people that unfortunately some of them betrayed him, but he's also met a lot of people that need help, which I think it's his full mission. And I think Kenny Porter's message is very interesting about that, like just finding a place to belong while still having some super kick-ass action scenes. Like it's all it all really comes together very well. And I think overall, whatever you think of the ending, I think to me it fulfills what Connor was kind of looking for, but also gives us a little bit of like hope that there's more for Connor to explore in the future. So let's take a look at some of the preview art here. As I mentioned, Lindsay's art is just fantastic. Like, I love the designs, I love the style, I love the coloring. Like, everything is just works really well. I think as we see this cyborg Superboy, which of course, fantastic concept. And Gattoni's letters, and I've really enjoyed all throughout this issue, like especially the narration boxes that are like sewn into the book. I think that's just like, that screams 90s Superboy, which is my favorite era of this character. And yeah, as you can see, the art, I love that Lindsay goes outside of the panels here to show just like the effort and like how strong Connor is going into this kick. Very cool panel. And like I said, Cyborg Superboy has a really cool design, and just even the conversation, like he's trying to feel like Connor is not he's trying to make Connor feel like he's not the real Superboy, which is very interesting. And of course, we get some really cool pages. We get a little bit of what to me almost feels like Akira transformation of the arm. Like, this whole fight to me feels very Akira, which I'm sure had to be a little bit of an influence on either Porter or Lindsay or both, maybe. So yeah, I am very satisfied with the conclusion of this book. I think it's got a lot of heart, and I'm just glad that Connor finally gets a little bit of a limelight. So I'm very glad that that this story won out the round robin contest, that they were able to expand on this. You also get a little bit of the other story as well. So yeah, this is going to be a really fun series. If you haven't been reading it or haven't been picking it up, you can check this out on DC Infinite. You can check this out once it's collected. I'm sure it's going to be a really cool collection. And of course, this book has been getting some of the better variant covers that DC's been doing in a long, long time, mainly because Connor looks super cool. That's just a big, big plus. So, if you have read this book, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Let me know what other cool stories are for Connor for me to read. I think that'd be nice to check out on the channel. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Wesley Dodds, The Sandman #1. This is a new book from DC Comics. So let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Robert Venditti with art by Riley Rossmo, colors by Ivan Plasencia, and letters by Tom Napolitano. I like this team a lot. I think it's a really fun team. I will say I am not the biggest fan of the Sandman, or at least not this version of the Sandman. I don't know much about him. I haven't read much Wesley Dodds, but I wanted to check out this first issue for the channel, and of course just to see if it's a new book, because like I mentioned, the creative team really it's a very attractive creative team when you put all the pieces together. So in this book, the Golden Age Sandman returns in a new noir mystery. No one escapes the Sandman's dark dreams, not even Wesley Dodds himself. After years of testing and experimentation, Wesley perfected his sleep gas as the optimal weapon for fighting crime without causing undue harm. But when his journal detailing all the fails and far more deadly formulas is stolen, the Sandman must hunt down the thief and the people in the shadows pulling the strings before the contents of the journal are released. I think the idea of the Sandman using this gas is really fun, and I want to say this doesn't feel fully like a noir story for me. I don't know whether it's Rosmo's artistic style, like, which I really like. I just don't know that it feels noir, or Plasencia's color palette choices. It doesn't always feel like a very dark, gritty story to me, like a detective story. Something more similar to what I would read in like Brubaker Phillips' book, for example, right? But it's still a really fun romp, I think. There's a lot of Wesley Dodds in this book, which I'm glad that they're trying to expand the story on that. It doesn't always make for the most interesting storytelling when you're trying to look into Wesley Dodds and his life, and like how he's trying to pitch this gas to replace some of the more violent weapons. But I think once the mystery kicks in and once his journal is stolen, I think that's what's really going to really bring you into the story. Let's take a look at some of the preview art, because as I mentioned, I'm a big fan of Riley Rossmo, and I just think, like, I like the look of the book. I just don't know that it's giving the noir vibes, but I love the paneling. I love the askew, like how everything's a little bit askew, and then just this big Wesley Dodds with all the gas, and then like everything kind of being incorporated into him. We also get a little bit of a flashback of his story. The letters also really match the style for Rosmo, where it's like they're not very the same font that you're usually seeing. It looks a little bit more askew as well. So I think it all kind of works together with the art. As you can see, some of the other effects of the gas are more deadly. And I do like Wesley Dodds as a character. I feel like he just wants to do good, not only because he's a member of the Justice Society, but also just as his legacy, right, of this character. So I think this is going to be a fun series. I will say it is not at the top of my reading list, so this might be something that I end up reading once it's collected, or like on DC Unlimited or DC Infinite. But if you are a fan of Wesley Dodds, let me know what you thought about this issue. Does this capture the essence of the character? There's some really cool covers for this book. I will say that. So I'm definitely picking up issue 1, at least just to have those covers and get some Riley Rossmo art in my life. But let me know what you thought about the issue down in the comments. As always. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Batman and Robin #2. This is a new book from DC Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Joshua Williamson with art by Simone DeMeo, Steve Wands on letters, and plenty of variant covers you'll see at the end of the video. In this book, we introduce a new villain, Shush. Introducing Shush. Who does she work for, and how have they turned one of Batman's greatest tools against him? Urban Jungle continues as the father and son dynamic duo are on the deadly case, but first, Damian must deal with his first day of school. I really like the premise of this book. I want Damian and Bruce to have a semblance of a normal relationship, or as normal as it can get for them. I do like that they are living together. Now, I will say I'm trying not to compartmentalize this book with some of the other stuff that's going on in the Batman universe, because obviously there's a lot of stuff going on with the Gotham War, so I'm trying to keep this a little bit separate. I don't know exactly if this takes place before or after, or sometime around, whatever. So that being said, I like the story. I like these urban jungle characters, like these animal type villains. I like this. The introduction of a new villain is always fun, especially when it's somebody that is maybe an homage or just a reference to one of Batman's greatest villains, Hush. So I think that's going to be really interesting to unfold that mystery. So now let's talk a little bit about the art. I am a big fan of Simone DeMeo's art. I did talk about last issue, and this is something that I kind of bumped up against a little bit again, because how stylized Simone DeMeo's art is, how he has a very unique color palette. Sometimes I run up against not knowing exactly who the characters may be, especially when we get a flashback here in the past. Like, this is probably somebody, like, I would like to have recognized who Damian's talking to here in the League of Assassins immediately. I think, but because it's so stylized, it took me a second to try to get there, right? Same thing with some of the other sequences as we fight. Like, all the fights look great and very dynamic, but the art is so stylized sometimes that it is a little bit difficult to pinpoint, like, if it's supposed to be a character that's already been established, or maybe just Simone DeMeo's take on a specific character. But that being said, it's not too big of an issue, especially when we get super cool stuff like this. Just like in this one, Batman's still being chased by all the bats because of what happened on the first issue. So make sure to go back and read that if you haven't yet. And of course, Damian trying to help him. I really want Damian to have his spiky hair. I feel like to me, this feels a lot like Tim Drake once again. So yeah, I think there's some choices that are not my favorite, but overall, I still really enjoy the book. I like these new villains. I really enjoy Simone DeMeo's art. It's great. I just think in this context, it needs a little bit more. It's a little bit jarring for me in this context. That's the only thing. But overall, once again, I'm really hooked on this series. So I can't wait to see what happens next, how we develop this new villain, and also how some of the other villains react, because we definitely have, as you'll see, some covers with Killer Croc, and so how does he play into the story? What's going to happen there? So if you have been reading this issue, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for The Chilling Adventures presents Welcome to Riverdale #1. let's take a look at the creative team before we dive into this book. This book is written by Amy Chase with art by Liana Kangas, colors by Ellie Wright, letters by Jack Morelli. With we have two covers, one by Liana Kangas and one by Marguerite Sauvage, which you'll see some of those at the end of the video. In this book, when Ginger Snap finds herself in the town of Riverdale, a town she's fanatically read about growing up, she's amazed by how wholesome and welcoming it truly is. But she can't help but to shake the uncanny valley feeling she has with every new person she meets. How can everyone be this nice? And how could the kindness drive someone to the brink of madness if it hasn't already? Explore toxic positivity gone wrong in this one shot that is equal parts Pleasantville and The Stepford Wives. So, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of the Archie horror line, especially these one shots that have been coming out pretty frequently. I believe they even collected one of those one shots. They've even collected the one shots into one trade paperback already, and I'm sure they'll do the same with this next wave of one shots. And of course, what better time to read some of these spooky stories than now as we head into the Halloween season? So this is a really fun book. I think the premise is amazing. And one thing is that I'm not the biggest Archie fan where like I don't have all the lore. A lot of these characters are new for me. I've never read anything with Ginger Snap that I can remember. But as long as you have some cursory knowledge of like Riverdale and who some of the Archie characters are, I think you'll definitely be on board very quickly. The story's very accessible. These all kind of feel like little Twilight Zone episodes, and this one definitely really takes that to the next level, I feel. As the story progresses and kind of we go into Riverdale, as Ginger gets there, there's a very eerie feeling kind of all throughout, and there are subtle hints at it all throughout the issue. And once things ramp up, I think that's when the fun really starts. But it's also really cool to kind of see the progression into like things seem normal and people are nice and funny and welcoming. But then little subtle details start to happen. Now, a lot of that has to do with the art. As I've mentioned in the past, Liana Kangas, one of my favorite artists. And it's really good to see them working on this issue. As you can see here, we see Ginger, very normal things happening in the restroom. Why are the mirrors kind of like having signs about smiling? What's going on? Why are the mirrors covered up? There's a lot of little hints at something being off. Especially here, we see Veronica kind of snaps at Ginger, but then I love how. I mean, it's not subtle because it's in a big splash page, but just like how eerie the design is here, like what's happening in the mirror, right? There's not a lot of hints at it. Why did Veronica snap? So just all those little details and the reaction of Veronica going from like this mad to being nice and asking for forgiveness again. Just really cool change in the art. And then, like I mentioned, just little things happening all throughout. And I love here, there's some panels that I really love, especially in this third page as Ginger gets ready to go out on the town and people just kind of force her to smile. It's just so weird. Like this one came out of nowhere and I really, really enjoyed that. We get to see Archie, we get to see all the gang, Jughead. There's this one person that I love how this panel's a little askew here. To kind of point out, I mean, it just really tells you like there's something off, right? Something's off of this person, or maybe something's right about this person. So I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, just the contrast between like some of this beautiful imagery of like the town and everything kind of being wholesome to the eerie feeling that you get later on from the illustrations and the art and the story. Yeah, it was really fun. I am really enjoying these one shots. I'm very glad I got to finally read this one. So you know that we'll definitely be talking more about these upcoming one shots, and just very excited to see what else the Archie horror line can do. So if you have read this issue, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Let us know which cover you picked up. I saw a third cover with like an homage to Harley Quinn. I don't know what that's for, but I put it in the video regardless. You'll see it at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, let us know what you thought of the comic, what you thought of what other one shots are some of your favorites from the Archie line. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Space Usagi Yokai Hunter #1. This is a new book from DarkHorseComics and Dogu Publishing. So, as I mentioned in my previous Usagi review, it looks like Usagi Yojimbo is now over at Dark Horse. So let's take a look at the creative team. This book is written with art and letters by Stan Sakai and colors by Emi Fuji. Of course, this book follows Usagi Yojimbo, the Ronin Rabbit Samurai. And in this issue, fans of legendary swordsman and wanderer Usagi Yojimbo, you have enjoyed countless tales told of exciting adventures, tales told over hundreds, perhaps thousands of years. Someone in the far future enjoys another classic adventure featuring the Rabbit Ronin, and Stan Sakai's Space Usagi universe returns with a unique new story. I will say that I was not aware of the Space Usagi title or moniker for the series. I really thought we were going to have Usagi Yojimbo in space somehow, which I was looking forward to reading. But this story brings I mean, as I mentioned in my previous reviews of the other Usagi Yojimbo story, I'm a big fan of the stories. I love the tropes of the Ronin samurai running around, taking on missions. In this case, hunting yokai, which are like demons or spirits, which can take on many forms and have many different abilities. So I think that makes for a really fun story. Of course, Stan Sakai is a master at his craft. Whether it's an establishing shot, or whether it's an actual fight, whether it's some of these more like cartoonish faces and grimaces, and including some of the designs for the monsters. I wanted to highlight this page because I love how much detail goes into all of it. I think also Emi Fuji's colors, because Stan Sakai normally does a lot of stuff in black and white. I think Fuji's colors really just bring a whole new dimension to Usagi Yojimbo. And these 6 panels at the bottom, just beautiful pacing, funny. They add comedic moments to it. It is just so much fun to read these every once in a while. So I'm very happy that now we have a couple of series over at Dark Horse to follow the Ronin Rabbit Samurai. So I'm very excited to keep talking about this. If you have read other Usagi Yojimbo stories that you want to recommend, please drop them in the comments. If you have read this book, let me know what you thought about it. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Midlife, or How to Hero at 50, #1. This is a new book from ImageComics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Brian Buccellato with art by Stefano Simeone and letters by Hassan Othmane El Hao. This was kind of an out of nowhere for me. I've read a lot of Buccellato's work in the past, specifically a lot of the superhero stuff. So this book I just definitely wanted to check out at least. Let me give you a quick synopsis for this series premiere. In this book, Ruben Kwan is a 50-year-old firefighter who's been afraid of fire his whole life. Instead of running into burning buildings, he pushes papers, living in the shadow of his father who died a hero on the job. After 25 years in the LAFD, he's firmly in the middle of an unremarkable life until his new wife gets pregnant, and a random act of courage reveals that Ruben is fireproof. From New York best-selling writer Brian Buccellato, as he teams up with star artist Stefano Simeone, tells the story of a relatable and sometimes cringy story of a middle-aged dad who's about to find out that his new powers have major strings attached to them. Uh, I hadn't read the premise when I went into the book. I just wanted to go in knowing very little other than, this is the creative team. Here's what the cover's trying to sell for you. I will say I got a variant cover that you can see at the end of the video, which made it really easy for me to want to check this out because Simeon's art is fantastic. I just really love how stylistic it is. It has a very cool look. And you can see some, let me pull up some of the preview pages here. As you can see here, Buccellado's storytelling just very efficient. I love how quickly we get into this world, traveling back to 1997. We get everything we need to know about Ruben in these 3 pages and how his sense of duty and also kind of what has led him to the life that he's currently living in 2023. So I love the colors of the flashback. Of course, everything has very warm tones. There's definitely a lot of themes of the fire, especially when we finally get to see some of the images here. We may revisit this in the future, I'm not sure, but I think I would like to keep exploring 1997 Ruben and comparing him to 2023 Ruben. We also get to see 2023 Ruben, as I mentioned, and I just love the shift to the cooler tones here as well. I think that's just a very nice contrast, and just the fact that you can't sleep, he's worried about something, he's going through his routine. It seems like a very slice of life type of book of somebody just dealing with some personal issues, but of course the book gives you a little bit more, and I think Buccellato does a really fun job at giving us that story, all this being carried by Simeon's beautiful art. So I really enjoyed this. I like the premise. It's a good hook. I don't know that I'll read this monthly. I feel like this to me would read a little bit better in arcs, but I will check out number 2 just to see how the pacing of the book goes before I make that decision. So if you have read this book, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for By a Thread. This is a new book from Comixology Originals. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Scott and Jack Snyder with art by Valeria Favoccia, Whitney Kogar on colors, letters by Tom Napolitano. So before we get into this book, as I saw the names of the creators, I knew that obviously there had to be a relationship. So this is written by both Scott and his oldest son, Jack. So let me give you a quick synopsis here from, or a quick pitch from IGN, an article that I'll post the link in the description. In Snyder's latest new creator-owned series is a post-apocalyptic adventure called By a Thread. And the biggest twist with this new series that is co-created by Snyder's eldest son, Jack. We have a quote from Scott Snyder. When my teenage son, Jack, brought me the idea over the summer, I thought it would be an incredible opportunity for us, and we've been working on it ever since. As a dad, I'm so proud and grateful to share this experience with him, and we hope that the fun we're having creating it is evident by when it's released. I'm thrilled to be working with one of the brightest young talents in the business, Valeria Favoccia, as our co-creator. And yeah, I mean, I didn't know that this book was going to be coming out. I was just on Comixology. I usually check in on Tuesdays when most of their new books come out, and I saw that there was a new number 1. So yeah, this is out, available now this week to read on Comixology, or for purchase if you don't have the Comixology Unlimited subscription. So let me give you a quick synopsis for the book. Growing up on Needle 3, Joe barely remembers a time before the darkness enveloped the world. But when our hero's community comes under attack by the despot Sharon and his forces, Joe and his friends must decide whether to leave everything behind in search of something better. The opening pages of this book just post such a really cool idea that I was just in from the beginning. I think that the book itself kind of goes, it weaves in and out of like how much it wants to focus on the apocalypse versus the characters that it's created. but it finds a really nice balance. Like, yeah, the first 2 pages, I was like, oh, something's happening, something weird's happening in this world, and I'm so in. And that's all very much driven by Favocious art. So let me pull up some preview art here. As you can see, these are the opening pages. We have a little bit of narration. We have just kids playing in the background, and we have this little patch of grass that's turned black. And, you know, as the narration says, nobody cared until it started killing something. Like this image of whatever this thing is, grabbing onto the bird and just kicking things off. You know, we have the military presence, the news, the realization that as of, you know, in a few hours or within a day, it had taken over a full state in the United States. And just as the narration progresses, everything just escalates even quicker and quicker into this dystopian world. Like, just very efficiently setting up just a very interesting premise. I would be very interested to hear what Jack's pitch was for his dad in this story, because I mean, this just sounds super cool. Like, what an amazing concept. And from there we get on to, like, you know, post-apocalyptic shenanigans. We do a little bit of a time skip, which is really fun. You know, 13 years later, as we meet some of the characters that we'll be following, we get a little bit of new world building now that we are in this other place. I love the idea that everything is now kind of surrounded by these towers of diamonds, because that's one of the only material that this thing can't really absorb and destroy. And just all the characters feel very diverse, feel very different, and it just makes for a really nice ensemble piece. And then, of course, as I mentioned, all this is driven by the beautiful art. Like, I love great colors. I love here the sunshine and how everything is just kind of shining off the diamonds, but at the bottom you see all the darkness that's kind of looming, right? So yeah, this has set up a really interesting world that I'm very excited to follow. I think this should be 3 issues for now, at least for the beginning. Most of these Best Jacket Press Comixology original books have been 3 issues to complete the first arc. I don't know how long they'll have a story to go for, but this first action one, first of all, the book is oversized. I believe it's like 40 pages total. And yeah, it just builds and builds until we have a really cool climax that, you know, kind of ends our first arc in this book. So very excited to see the rest. Very excited to follow, find more work by Valeria, because the work in this book has been amazing. So very excited to follow that as well. And yeah, this one caught me by surprise, but it was a very delightful surprise for sure. And then, you know, with the added bonus that you get to see a father-son duo working with an amazing artist to bring this to life, which is really cool. So if you have read this book, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when we go live. That is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.